coming up to Frank Gehry's dancing house. Obecni Dum, I think it is in Czech. I think he's just one of the architects on it. I can't remember the other guy's name. However, that's not the reason I'm come up this way. As you see in a moment, just up the road from the dancing house, we have the Church of St. Cyril and Methodius. Statue of two men, one dressed military, the other one obviously ecclesiastical, and bullet holes in the wall of the church. Memorial to Josef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš, two Czechoslovakians. When the Czechoslovak government was in exile in the UK, they actually went to France first, I believe, escaped to France, and then to UK themselves, where they were trained by the British military, the parachute regiment, and then with the aid of the British military actually parachuted into Czechoslovakia at the time under sort of radar, and planned the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich, who was like the governor, if you will, leader of the what was then the Protectorate of Bohemia at that time under the Nazi occupation. I think they're actually trained a lot of the time in Cheshire in the UK, so not a million miles away from where I live actually. And then man, they were back in the city of Prague in hiding with the assistance of some others under the codename Operation Anthropoid. Planned the assassination of Heydrich, who was using the Prague castle as residence at the time, and he was on his way to Berlin to meet Hitler about possibly being moved to France instead because of the resistance movement. But he got assassinated, not in situ, but he died of his wounds later on by hand grenades just on the outskirts of the city, near Holešovice, I believe, at a turning in the road that forked off. And that's when Heydrich, he was a big guy, I think he was about 6'5" or something, tall guy, got mortally wounded and ended up down about a week later of his wounds. Obviously I can't get in the church at the moment, but this is like the final place where they were hiding, and then found out in the church, and ended up having a 6-hour standoff. I think it was about 6 hours with the Nazis. One of them was severely wounded, I think Jan Kubiš, and only a young man at the time, and the other one died. So I think Jan Kubiš, the one who's severely wounded, mortally wounded, tried to commit suicide but fell unconscious before he could do. Apparently for that the Nazis executed 24 of the family members. Tragic story, not a million years ago, sort of recent memory, but they, I think, knew what they were doing and gave their lives for a just cause. Very brave men. Obviously they should be remembered. I think the bodies are in sort of like a large cemetery, so there's been cause, I think, for them to be located and given more proper fitting burial. Fleku, probably the oldest brewery in Prague since 1499, over 1200 seats apparently. It's an interesting place, very historic, nice beer, maybe a bit of a hard sell with a few things, and I think they're trying to charge for the toilet, so I've got my custom with the beer. I'm not paying for a toilet. Not the cheapest in Prague, I think, but certainly not the most expensive either. A lot cheaper than the UK, so that's all that matters to me. And you're actually paying for a decent beer. They just seemed to produce the beer out of nowhere. As soon as I said what I wanted, realised I had to go around sort of rotation with about 6 beers on a platter at any given time, just going round. So they just hand them out there and then, mix of light and dark beers. Svietli and Cherny, or Tamava, I think they call it, for dark. Should be the new town hall. No, it's not exactly new when you look at it. Interesting building, like mix of styles almost, I think. Like a Gothic tower, sort of remodelled Gothic core, Renaissance. Beautiful high gables. Some of the most interesting old buildings actually in the new town, what's called the new town area, which isn't exactly new. It's mainly sort of residential 10th century buildings, 15th century Stiletti. Yeah, what's that? 1452-56. Novem jest ska radnica. So yeah, new town hall. Prague was largely spared the ravages of war that was wrought on other cities, raised the likes of Warsaw. Prague was more or less untouched. If anything, it was the Allied powers that caused quite a bit of damage, that being the US. Some significant historical buildings. US bombed parts of Prague towards the end of the war. They mistook it as Dresden. According to them, the instruments weren't working properly and it was a particularly cloudy day, and they mistook the Vltava river for the Elbe. It's got a similar winding configuration. Europe's oldest active synagogue, 13th century. Right next to it is the town hall, Baroque additions. Two sort of survivors of what was the Jewish district, but most of it got cleared out in the 19th century by decree. It was considered slums, so it got cleared out and sort of newer buildings populate the area today. Nazis wanted to keep the buildings as well as like a museum to a distinct race. Store over there, you got a reference to Golem, legend of the Golem of Prague. Apparently the rabbi in the 16th century had created the golem out of like the clay mud from the banks of the Vltava river at a time that was particularly oppressive for citizens of the ghetto, and kind of created a manifestation called the Golem. Couldn't really think for itself, it was like a protector. The Franz Kafka sculpture. So it looks like he's holding a gun when you first look at it, sitting on the shoulders of unidentified individual. Maybe the bureaucracy, maybe his lack of identity is prominent in his story, in his books. Prague had its own Baroque Mariam plague column. It was pulled down sort of early 20th century because Catholicism was no longer all the rage, so it got pulled down, but I believe there's plans to recreate it as it was. Going up the street to the Krasna Brana again, Powder Gate. Apparently it's saying there's actually no records of it ever being used as a gunpowder store. It shows you shouldn't believe everything you hear online or read online. Its actual intention was supposed to be as like a sort of processional gate, like a fancy entrance to the city leading up to the castle. Krasna Brana is the Obecni Dum. Probably the most famous Art Nouveau building, one of, if not the finest Art Nouveau building in Prague. Most of the rooms you can't get in apparently, but apparently there's an allegory, like mural in one of them by Alphonse Mucha, more known for the artworks of the women that are often used in the 10th century, like 19th century advertisements. Got this big nice mural on the front. This great sort of glasswork, almost like stained glass. Like a porte cochere that comes out. Got a great Art Nouveau sort of letting. Let's see if it's a little kingdom inside. Yes. Looks like there's a show on tonight. Sort of stone masonry frieze there, like a femme fatale character that seemed to be popular at this period of time. It's definitely a must, isn't it?
For years is 289.
Got to sneaking one more beer. Everywhere shut up shop over here. It's midnight. Thought it's killing me anyway. Been walking more or less non-stop. So I'm gonna call it a night. Try and get an early start before my flight home later tomorrow.